Okay, we're recording. So those are the two basic terminologies, recorded video and live streams. Recorded videos are typically used for virtual tours. They can be shared out via URL, inputted into a listing. They can get broadcast out through that URL to all the public-facing websites. And there's some branding issues that we have to talk about. And then live streams, which are geared directly towards a group or a specific individual. And those would be for virtual showings, private showings, and live open houses. So let's go back up to the top of the document here. We've got a grid here that shows the three different types of tours that typically come up in the context of what we're talking about. There are virtual tours and video tours and branded virtual tours. The grid will display where and how those things are branded and how they can be displayed. So a virtual tour, for example, goes into the MLS field on Paragon, into the virtual tour field. It cannot contain agent information or company information, so no branding whatsoever. It does display within the MLS on an agent full or a customer full report. And it is also sent out to the outside website, Zillow, Realtor.com, Hostap, etc. Video tours, same thing, can't contain any branding. They are displayed within the MLS, and they're also sent out to the outside sources. A branded virtual tour can contain branding, logos, things of that nature. Those are not displayed in the MLS, but they are also sent out to the outside sites. So the common thread here is that anything that's branded cannot be displayed on an agent full or customer full. That's the basic rule. Public sites such as Zillow expects virtual tour information to be supplied from the MLS within the specific tour field that the MLS provides, and will remove most any other link that appears, such as links in public remarks. Now, one of the things that's been happening recently is we've never allowed any kind of links within the public remarks, but they sort of loosen the rule on that with regards to links to virtual open houses. And a lot of people have misconstrued that and have been putting in links to virtual tours within those public remarks. Then they get stripped, sent out to the public websites, and then there's a discord between the agent and the MLS as to what happened to that field. Why is it missing? And that's why. So you are allowed to put that into the public remarks as long as it is for a virtual show, a virtual open house. But that's still not going to get picked up outside. So that's really just for people that are internal and agent fulls, customer fulls, etc. So that would cover virtual and video tours and what those are. Dollhouse views, floor plans, 3D virtual tours, video that you've taken yourself, and then they're uploaded as a virtual tour. Virtual open houses are live video streams of an actual open house, the same manner in which they're conducted when buyers are actually walking through a property. So it's a live session via Facebook Live or Zoom, Skype, a few other options, in which buyers can ask questions. They can ask to see things like, please open the pantry, I want to see the garage, the bedroom, the yard. As is the case if you were in an actual in-person open house, branding is not an issue on those things. You're allowed to wear a logoed shirt. You're allowed to say who you are and what company you're with, etc. So that's no different than you would be in a regular in-person open house. Video streams are no different. They just happen to be done virtually. So think of that in that context. A virtual tour is never changed. It's what we've always done. The rules still apply as they always have. Virtual open houses are the same thing as being in person. It's just you're talking through a different avenue or different vehicle, a camera or a streaming service. Now, I will provide this a link to this document when I post this stuff live on Facebook later this afternoon. And there's a link here for instructions on marketing virtual open houses within the MLS. So that will show you where to go, what's allowed in what field, there has been a new field added to the MLS. So those of you that are Paragon users, if you log into Paragon on the front page, the message board, there's a message there about this new field and what goes into that field. This link will also show you where that is and what it's for. And the last item here is virtual private showings. Again, live video stream or recorded, but they are for the private use of a buyer. So you can walk through a property live. I've seen Melissa do this a few times. These are done for private showings. So these are not allowed to be shown on your Facebook page. They're not allowed to be placed into the MLS at all, because again, you're allowed to wear a logo on your shirt. You're allowed to say, hi, this is Melissa from First Weber, and this is 121 Main Street. That can't be used out in the public arena. It has to be done for private party-to-party showings. So either live or recorded for the private use of a buyer. The agent uses video to walk a buyer through the property as they normally would in person, answering questions, opening doors. And that link or that video can be sent directly to the buyer or shared with the buyer via Showing Time. And there's a link to that as well. Showing Time has enabled us now to utilize a field within that to schedule and set up virtual showings. And there's a video on that in this document as well. Some important video tips, and we're going to go over these a little bit more in the presentation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this will be a document. You're in this document when you get it. There's a few pointers here about cleaning your lens and using lighting and some basic video concepts that will really help you do professional looking video and make it look nice and that it's easy to use for the buyer. There are a lot of different streaming services, which we'll talk about a couple of them in our presentation today. There's Facebook Live, there's Zoom, Google Hangouts and Meet, Skype. It's just a handful. Those are the most popular and easiest to use. And then there are other links here for recorded video hosting, such as Vimeo, which is a paid service. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's a month-to-month. So if you want to use that, that's a really nice way to be able to put video up there and not have to worry about any branding issues at all. YouTube is listed here, but YouTube, when you create a YouTube channel, for example, RASCW has one, it's got our logo on it. It's got our name and our phone number and our website. That's all considered branding. So if I were going to use a YouTube channel, I would have to create a new channel without any branding whatsoever, and that can become a little bit complicated. So Vimeo, while there is a small cost to it, might be a better option for that purpose. And then just a final note, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail when we go back to the presentation, but it's really not necessary to have a cache of expensive equipment to do effective video and recording. Most everybody have what they need already, and there are a few things that can help, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. So I'm going to jump back over to my presentation here. Yes, Summer. I am trying to unmute. There you go.
I got myself unmuted. I had just a question about
yes.
So like syndicated websites or IDX. Do you know? Is there any way to know if you do a non-branded tour, which sites that tour syndicates out to?
It goes to pretty much every IDX company out there that's getting the feeds all have an algorithm that goes through every field that the MLS makes available, and these fields are available. So pretty much everybody's going to have access to that.
Okay, thank you.
And then you do have in Paragon, there's 3 separate fields. There's a place for open house, there's a place for virtual tour, and there's a place for branded virtual tour. And so you simply can create one that's branded and one that isn't, and you can put those in the appropriate fields, and then Paragon and IDX determines which field to pull from based on what site that's going to and how it's displayed, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet. So let's see if we can get the screen to advance here. Back up one here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, let's see if I can minimize this and get it out of my way. Pre-qualifying a property for virtual showing. So this is something that came up in a panel that I did a while back, a few weeks ago, with a few experts that have been sort of doing this on a regular basis before this happened, and had some really good ideas about how to do something called pre-qualifying a property, which we all kind of do anyway. People are looking for a 3-bedroom home in a certain area with a certain yard and certain square footage, so we're pre-qualifying property that way. But this is sort of a different level, where we're pre-qualifying a property based on maybe some things that are considered deal breakers. So for example, what are the sticking points for the buyer? We should get those items looked at first and filmed first, to try to eliminate having to go into the property at all. So an example of this that came up the other day would be, somebody said that they need a very private yard. They don't want a whole lot of view of neighbors or by the neighbors into the yard. So rather than going in the front door and looking at all of the features of the house and spending 20 minutes doing that and then going into the yard and now the property's mute, let's try to be thinking about what those sticking points are and focus on that point first, so that we can try to eliminate the amount of footprint that we're putting into that property as we ourselves are walking through it. That's for our safety and the safety of everyone else. And right now I have you guys minimized, so I can't tell if you're asking questions. So I'll come back to if you have a question, just sit tight. Look for pictures and virtual tours of the property first. See what you can find that's out there already, that maybe you have access to that the buyer doesn't, and try to share that information, again, to try to limit the footprint and traffic that we're doing ourselves through the property, again, for our safety and the safety of the homeowner. So just trying to be a little bit more conscious about limiting the amount of time that we're spending in a property and how many footprints we have to put into it. This is another important one too, is to encourage buyers to drive by prior to the virtual showing to help put context to outside views. So one of the things that you lack in a video, especially in outside, is depth perception. And it's really hard to look at a backyard maybe from the back fence line through a lens of a camera and see really how big things are. So one of the things that can be done is just to have them drive by, which is kind of a normal thing anyway, but to get a concept of the height of the trees, the height of the house, so that when you're looking at it through the eyes of a lens, you have a little bit of an idea about the perception of depth and how things look from their eyes. So it's a sort of a way to conceptualize things a little bit better. Let me bring you guys back up here so I can see you. We still good? Any questions? All right. Let's talk a little bit about virtual open houses, and virtual tours, virtual showings, I should say. We're going to talk about a couple of the platforms that are most popular right now, and a couple of videos that I'm going to air as well. So let's first talk about Facebook Live, because this is probably the most popular one. Facebook Live has some advantages. First of all, you can create an event ahead of time on Facebook and then advertise that open house as you would normally, by setting a scheduled date and time, and then people are aware of it and they can show up at that allotted time, just in time for you to go live, and they can ask questions, etc. Most everybody has a Facebook account, so public access to that is very easy. Everybody kind of knows the controls and how to use it. I don't think there's a whole lot of people out there that have never seen a Facebook Live broadcast, so everybody's gonna be very familiar with that. And the event can be shared on Facebook pages, and the URL can also be put into the new virtual open house field in Paragon. So it's another easy way to create something, schedule something, and get it advertised. So I'm going to show a short little video to show you how this works.
Is I am on my RASCW Facebook page. And if you are an admin on that page, if this is your page, you'll go up here across the top and choose Publishing Tools. It's going to open up a new screen. And on the very left, you're going to click the Creator Studio. This allows us to create content for immediate posting or future postings. But again, talking in the context that we're in here now, I am in the Creator, and what I want to do is across the top here is I want to go live. Now, when this opens up here, I'm going to go over here to the left, and I have two options: to go live now, which is a really easy way to create a live video, include an image, share your desktop, and those types of things. In this case, we want to schedule a live video. And when I'm scheduling this, I'm going to click the date and time. We're going to go this Sunday, the 19th. And I'm going to say, let's go for 11:30. It's going to be here on the Realtors Association, South Central Wisconsin. I'm going to give this a title, 123 Main Street, Virtual Open House. And you can put anything you want in here. Select an image that you want to upload, maybe an image of the front of the property or something along those lines. And then we are simply going to schedule the live video.
So again, just a very easy way to schedule ahead of time. Now, once it's scheduled, and my video cut off, so I apologize, there's a link up here at the top, which is very fuzzy right now, but there's a link up here with an option to copy. Yeah, we got an alert coming in here. With an option to copy that URL, and then that URL can be shared out, put into the open house field in Paragon, and shared out, emailed out to customers, that type of thing. So very, very easy to do. And then on your page in events, hold on, got a chat. Okay. Very, very easy to use. I lost my train of thought there. Sorry. So when you look at your Facebook page under the event section, that will be listed as an upcoming event. I should note that it takes a few minutes because you've scheduled this through this tool. It doesn't just show up immediately as an event like you would normally create an event. We do that all the time for our events that we do, our Euchre events, etc. We create the event, it's immediately visible. It takes a few minutes for it to show up, but it does show up as an event. And then of course that can be shared, etc. And people can register for it and sign up for it too. Let's talk a little bit about Zoom because that's the other popular one. It has some advantages as well. You can also create an event in Zoom with a scheduled date and time. It's free, it's easy to use, and it's easy to invite others. You just simply create the meeting, invite people via an email address. They get an invite, just as you guys did in the invitation that I had sent you for this meeting. Most of us have been familiar now, as we've been forced to be over the last few weeks here, to learn how to use Zoom. Very, very easy to use. A link is provided, you open it up, and in you go. One of the advantages to Zoom, again, is it works on all platforms. So whether you're on a laptop or a PC or a MacBook Pro or an iPhone or an Android, Zoom works on all those platforms, and it works exactly the same for everybody. Another big advantage to Zoom is that it can be password protected, and it's not out in the public view. So we have the ability to send those invites directly to the individuals that are going to be participating in that meeting or in that showing, and it's not shared out to anyone else. So that helps keep things kind of locked down, and it is a private showing. So I'm going to do a quick little video on this one too to see how this works.
So this is going to be a little bit weird. If I try to film how to use a Zoom meeting using my on-screen recorder with my phone, I lose audio because Zoom wants to take over the audio so that I can communicate with the participants in that meeting. So the only way that I can do this is to film my desktop from my phone. So that's what you're seeing here. So what I'm going to do here is this is what would happen if I was at a property and I was going to be using Zoom to do a virtual tour. I'm sorry, a virtual open house or virtual showing. I would go to a new meeting. There I am. Hello. And I would join with computer audio. And then I would add participants. I would invite those participants. And I would choose that either by entering an email address, such as here, using Gmail. I can use Yahoo or default, or I can open up my contacts, and I can just invite people the way that you normally would. Now, I'm not going to do that right now, but you would just simply type in an email address. If we go to Gmail here, it's going to open up my email account and compose a message. And of course, I can then send that to whomever I choose, like so. And there is all the information about the meeting, including the link to the meeting, etc. So let's go back to Zoom here. Boy, this probably is really weird. It's like the vortex. I'm talking to myself, watching myself talk to myself, or something along those lines. But that is all there is to it. Now, if I was on my phone right now, I would have an option to flip the camera to the other facing way so that I could walk through the property, and I'd be able to communicate with my clients and walk through the property. So very, very easy to use. And then, of course, when I'm done here, I'm just going to simply end the meeting.
So again, very easy to use. Any questions on either of those two at all at this point? Okay. So let's look at a few other live options, some of the advantages and disadvantages of those. FaceTime, very easy to use and familiar to a lot of people, but FaceTime is typically only used on iOS. And so a little bit more limited on who can use that and who can't. Skype is a very popular one. Another one that's available on all platforms, doesn't really matter what operating system or what device you're using. One of the problems with Skype is that it's so widely used, and it's sort of an older platform. It can be a little bit laggy. And so when we're trying to show video and show a good shot of a pantry or a bedroom, it can be a little bit pixelated and be a little bit fuzzy. So there's some lag issues with Skype. YouTube Live, most won't be able to use this because you need to have a large number of followers to use it. Our Facebook or our RASCW YouTube page has a pretty decent following, but I don't have enough on there even to go live with that. Some brokerages have a YouTube account, and you are able to use that because they have enough followers to be able to utilize it. But for most, that's not really going to be an option. And it's a little bit clunky as well. Google Meet is a really good application. It's very similar to Zoom, very easy to use. But whoever is hosting that meeting or hosting that tour needs to have a G Suite account, a paid Google account, in order to use it. So it's not available for everyone. anybody that's going to join the meeting, they don't have to have an account. They will simply get an alert that they've been invited. They'll click a link, it'll install it for them, and away they go. But in order to host it, you have to have a paid account in order to use it. So really, Facebook and Zoom are probably the two that are most popular right now, because they're readily available, they're free, and they work for just about everybody. And everybody's comfortable with how it works. I'm going to talk a little bit about some advanced equipment. You don't need a cache of special equipment to do good video, but it is nice and it does help. And so I'm going to show you here a couple of options. Gimbals and stabilizers. Got a picture down in the lower left of a common gimbal. And to the right, we've got a couple different microphone options. There are lapel mics that plug directly into the phone, which you can wear on your collar, so that as you're moving around and trying to film, sometimes what happens is we're holding our phone, trying to hold it steady, and we don't realize that our hand is covering the microphone, and so things are muffled. This can help eliminate that. There's also shotgun mic options, which are basically microphones that can be pointed either away from us, such as in an interview situation, or pointed back at us if we're doing some type of narrative. I happen to have one here, which is got a right and a left, and I can actually put this upright onto a stabilizer, and it picks up my voice on one side and sounds from the other side, but I can angle that in any direction. And so it's a really nice way for doing, really easy way to get really good audio in a video. Now, there's two basic things that will kill good video: lighting and movement. Those are the two that will hurt us the most. Smooth video movements is important. And that's one of the things that a gimbal can help us do. If you pull back up your speaker view, so you can kind of see me, this is a standard gimbal. I don't know if you can see that. This is the one that I use. One of the advantages to using this is that obviously I can move around, I can walk, I can go up and down stairs, and the video is not doing this. If I move too quickly, the gimbal actually slows it a little bit. So smooth the video transitions, smooth deliberate movements is something that something like a gimbal or a stabilizer can help you do. Now, again, not necessary. We can compensate for that by simply taking our phone and just being very deliberate about how we move. Always remember that human movement is amplified in video. Most video does not have the speed or the frame rate to keep up with our movements. So even if you look at my hand right now moving across the screen, the video can't keep up with it. There's going to be a blur, there's going to be blanks. And not only are we doing this via video, but we're also streaming it. So we're sort of have to succumb to the bandwidth that we're using, the internet connection we're using, and all of that matters. So you can walk in and have the greatest lighting in the world and really good movement. You might be somewhat limited based on your internet connection. So one of the things that we can do to compensate for that is on every phone. Grab my phone here. I have an iPhone 11 Pro, and one of the things that you can do on this, and you can do it on any phone, is to go into the settings, and you can control what video quality you're recording at and what video quality you're broadcasting at. And the lower, the better, because you're never going to be able to get 4K video to go across the internet to the recipient. It's just never going to happen. It's going to be choppy and breaking up. And you might have witnessed videos before where somebody's talking, and before the end of the sentence is heard, they're into another sentence. There's a break in the audio and the video. And I've seen this on some live open houses where somebody's walking from the living room to the back room. They're walking down the hallway, and all of a sudden the screen flips and they're already leaving the bedroom. So you've just missed that because your video quality is set too high. You're not able to keep up. So take a look at the settings on your phone. I would suggest somewhere between 360 and 780p is totally fine. Most people are not going to see anything higher quality than that anyway. There's really no reason to be filming in 1080 or 4K. It's just not necessary. Now, if you're taking actual video recordings, that's a different story. We want to film at a higher frame rate. We want to film at a higher quality so that when we're uploading it, people are watching it from a stream, we're going to see that same quality. So again, smooth video movements. The gimbals allow us to zoom and pan very easily without being herky-jerky and getting our thumb in the way of the lens and that kind of thing. And it also prevents us from covering the audio holes. It also gives us the ability to have enhanced angle, variety of angles of shot. So if we're looking around a yard, we can pan up and down. If we're looking into a down the basement stairs, or we're climbing the stairs, we can easily adjust those angles and see things in a little bit better way. So not required, but they can help you as you move forward. This also helps for those of you that do a lot of video outside of these types of situations where we are actually using video for marketing. A lot of you I've seen do great videos where you're sitting at a desk, you're doing a selfie type video, talking about the market. Think about the shots that we're seeing right now as we look at each other on camera. We're looking through laptops that are sitting on a desk looking at us. It's a decent framed shot. But if we wanted to be doing the same thing walking around a property, or a lot of times what I see is a really good shot of somebody sitting back behind a desk. This is pretty popular in Zoom right now. For Josie especially, she's got her guild logo behind her, it looks great. If you wanted to have like a chart or maybe some pictures of a property up there, it might require you to be back away from the camera a little bit, but you'll notice as I back away from my camera, my voice is not changing. My volume level is not changing. And that is because I'm using my AirPods. I'm using a microphone, a lapel mic, something along those lines that stays with me and allows me to be heard better. So again, not required, but it can help enhance things a little bit. Couple of important points we've already talked about. Lighting and slow movement is always important. This one I can't stress enough. Have a plan. Do a walkthrough yourself and rehearse your walkthrough. Take a couple of quick little short videos, recorded videos, and watch them back before you go live. So you can see what the lighting looks like. Is it too dark? Is it too light? Can I be heard okay? Because it's really difficult when you're live to have somebody raise their hand and say, I can't really hear you, and now I've got to try to adjust for that. So can't stress that enough. To do a walkthrough, know what your path through that house is going to be, know what areas you need to focus on, whether or not you need additional lighting or whether or not you need to turn a light on. Sometimes light is an enemy. Summer's background looks great right now because it's so bright. She looks very dark. If I were to point my camera over towards the open window, everything in the room would become dark, even though it's very bright in here, because the lens can't discern between the two. So think about those things before you go live. What do I need to do? Does it look okay? Again, use a lower frame rate resolution. That can really help correct for bad connections. And then above and beyond everything else, have fun with this. I see so many robotic, this is the kitchen. This is the kitchen cabinet. I know that. I know it's a kitchen. I can see the sink and the stove. Have fun with it. Have fun with yourself and have fun at your own expense. People love that as well. So if you are relaxed and you're personable, your video will be as well. And that's going to make it a much better video, even if you don't have the equipment. Here's another one, right? I don't know if you can see that, but this is a handheld stabilizer, and I've got a light on the top with a microphone mount that I can literally walk through and very easily rotate and pan this. $60, relatively cheap. But if I go through there with all this equipment and I'm robotic and I'm not enjoying it, I'm not showing any personality in it, none of that stuff matters. So just, this is no different than you're going through a property with a customer standing right behind you or right in front of you. Be yourself and have fun with it. Last point, you will get better at doing these. So keep at it. Don't do one and then decide, that was horrible, I'm never going to do another one of those. Or I did one and I only got 2 views. I spent an hour out there doing this. It takes time, just like real estate itself, just like developing a customer base. It takes time, but you have to be consistent and you have to keep doing it over and over and again, and you will get better at it. I'm always reminded of a story of an agent that attended a coaching webinar and signed up for like 6 weeks, and it was every week they did a 2-hour meeting online. And this agent happened to be in the same town as the coach. And they were coaching about video, utilizing video in their business. And everybody was asked, by week 3, I want you to have a video, a selfie video, talking about what you do and why you're in real estate and why these people should call you. And everybody got theirs done, and she just struggled. She didn't have it done. She wasn't turning anything in. And finally he called her and he said, what's going on? What's the problem? You have equipment problems? And she said, oh no, I got it solved. Check it out. And she like turned her camera, and she's like this UPS box sitting on the counter. She's like, it just came today. I'm good. I'm going to get this done. I just need about another 5 days and I'll be good to go. And he's like, what? I'm coming to see you. We need to schedule a meeting. So she agreed. He'd come over to my house. He went over and he said, what's so important in this box that we've got to keep everybody waiting? And she said, it just came today. It came from China, so it took a while. It's this amazing eye cream. It's going to get rid of all these bags under my eyes to make me look beautiful. And then and he's like, you've got to be kidding me. And he reached over next to the box. There was a big pair of sunglasses. He's like, put these on and let's go. And they went out in the backyard, and she had this beautiful gazebo. She put on her sunglasses. They did a 1 take, and it was brilliant. So she just kept putting it off because she was worried about whether she was going to sound okay and look okay. She lost all that time. And for what? It's just silly. So keep at it. Don't worry about it. People are going to see you anyway. So just keep at it. I'm going to switch back over out of this view here so I can get the chats back open. Stop my share here. I can see all your lovely faces. Does anybody have any questions at all? Let me unmute people here. Just take me a minute. All right, unless I've unmuted you all, but unless you have your microphone muted, you're free to speak. Does anybody have any questions at all? I'd love to hear questions or any stories that you have about what you're doing that you could share with the group.
What are those 7 chats? What's in there? What does that mean?
There's a chat window that you can look at over on the right-hand side.
So people are talking back and forth. This is new for me. So
yes.
Okay.
So Julie had a question. What setting is recommended for the video recording? There are like a billion choices on my phone. Yes, there are a billion, and you really only need like 3. So depending on what device you're using, You can choose from low, medium, or high quality, or HD. Like on an iPhone, you have all different types. What you want if you're recording video is 16:9 ratio, which is landscape, and you want at least 720p. 1080 would be even better. 4K is probably not necessary because you're not going to have a platform you can upload that to that's going to display that for you anyway. So 720 to 1080 in resolution and 16:9 for your size ratio. That's another thing too, is we try not to film this way. Now, one of the disadvantages to Facebook Live is that you are required to do this. You can't go this way. It will tell you to turn it this way. So that's one disadvantage. So what I would see on my laptop is a portrait style video with 2 black bars, one on each side, right? So try to keep those, you know, if you're going to use Facebook Live and you want to do it this way, depth is going to be more important, where you're going to have to be pulled back away from things in order to get a better view. And then panning, of course, is going to have to be done very slowly.
The
Good
gimbals
question.
work with portrait and landscape.
Gimbals will. So mine has a button on it called mode. And if I clip the button, it will rotate between the two. It'll switch back and forth.
Okay.
Good question. Anybody else have anything they want to add? I've overwhelmed all of you.
Oh, it's great information.
It's good info.
I'm curious, you know, not on the techie end of things, but just for a good old fashioned showing, if people are still doing those and what precautions they've been taking, if so.
Yeah, so it's another really good point. And one of the things that I've been asking people in conversations I've had, in phone calls, emails, and even covered a little bit in my my last panel video is, yeah, what are people doing? Because unfortunately I think this is why we're all a little bit lost in this virtual showing, virtual tour type world, is that not everybody was doing that before. The people that were doing those before, that were doing video and virtual type things, this was an easy transition for them. But for those of us that were not, this is all new. And so terminology and things that we were typically doing before are suddenly foreign to us. And this is a really good point. If we are required to do in-person showings, and even as individuals ourselves going in to do virtual stuff, what are we doing before we walk into that house? The biggest thing with respect to the buyers would be an education process beforehand, which is, I'm going to ask you to, you know, I'm going to provide you with a mask if you don't have your own. We're going to wipe our hands down and wash our hands with sanitizer before and after the property showing. Do not touch any light fixtures, doorknobs. I will be responsible for that, so that you're practicing safety and you're in control of that situation. So basically, hands in pockets or hands folded, right? Arms folded, and walk through the house. Try not to touch anything. And we do that for their safety and the safety of the homeowner. And then after the showing's over, making sure that when you're leaving a room and you're leaving the house, you're wiping down a doorknob, have some wipes with you. You know, it's sort of like what we used to do with being careful of carpet and taking our shoes off and those kinds of things, but on steroids, right? We have to make sure that we're wiping everything down and we're making sure that nobody's touching anything that's not necessary. Things like opening cabinets, opening a pantry, that should be your responsibility, and making sure that you're doing that safely and wiping things down when you're done. A lot of agents are carrying little booties to put on shoes, which for some people is normal. They do that anyway. Carrying hand sanitizer with them. Some are carrying masks, an array of masks. They know who they're taking out. So they know they've got 3 or 4 people that are going to be on the showing. I would argue that's maybe too many. You want to try to keep it to 1 or 2, and make sure that you have enough equipment for them in case they don't have their own. Encourage them to bring their own if they have them. But then when you're done and they've left, put those in a baggie, take them home, microwave them, wash them, do whatever you need to do if they're reusable. But the more that you can provide for them, the safer everybody's going to be. And it's really up to you to educate them on these things, because I think at least in my opinion, if somebody's willing to go to a house and do an actual in-person showing, and walk through someone's home, my guess is they may not be taking this as seriously as you are. And so always be thinking that in your head, that they just maybe aren't thinking about this the way that I am. And we all need to be thinking about it that way. Good question. Let's see, what do we got? Any more texts in here? No. Anybody else have anything that they want to share? No? Nope.
I was going to just
ahead.
real quick on just mention appraisals. I refis, there's some people that don't want appraisers in their house, and on purchases, listing agents or listings may not want appraisers in their house. Appraisers are required to take the same precautions, but we have alternatives that can be done. And if someone absolutely doesn't want an appraiser in their house, as long as it's a purchase transaction, there are alternatives to an actual in-person appraisal.
Could you highlight maybe a couple of bullet points of what that might be?
So if somebody does not want an appraiser in their house because of COVID, I mean, it has that reason, they can request an exterior only appraisal. Now that doesn't mean that the cost is any less or the time frame on getting them back is any quicker, because according to the appraisers, it's actually more work because they have to try to come up with a value without actually being in the house. So
Right.
it sometimes takes more, but that is an option, is to do, basically we called it a drive-by before.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for that.
Well, speaking from the title company, most everybody knows now they cannot come into our office, and so we are doing the curbside closings, which is unique for a lot of people. We really haven't had any complaints about it. Most people are very understanding why they're in their car. The closer goes out. They do go through the documents themselves, but if they need to talk to the closer, they can call into the office and the closer will go through the docs like that. We thought maybe it would even be faster than an hour closing, but actually it's not. Having less people involved sitting in a big closing room, but it's actually taking a little longer. And it's been unique for the closers to remember, they're out of their sync and routine. And so, yeah, by the end of it, they'll be totally pros. But we'll be back to it soon. But we have not had really any complaints. It's just the way it's going to be, and trying to protect everybody.
So do you think that when this is over and we sort of reach the other side, that you guys' buildings will start looking more like Sonic drive-throughs?
Could be. We're looking for roller skates. The thing is, we're all kind of lonely inside because we are so used to so many people just stopping in at any time for stuff, whatever, or just even to say hi to us. And it's very quiet, that end of it. Even though we're busy, we're missing everybody. So, yeah.
Julie had a comment here about curbside closing, and maybe some consumers really having questions about not knowing what they're signing. And I don't think that's really any different than a normal closing, would it be?
No. And again, if they're in their car and they have questions, what we're going to ask them to do is hopefully they have a cell phone, and they will just call into that closer, and the closer will have copies of everything and will explain it to them.
Okay.
You know, we've had some new people that have never owned a home before. And they have I mean, you know, they thought it was great.
Right.
They had no idea
Sure.
what another closing would be like. Someday
Yeah.
they will. But yeah, the closers have copies of everything, so they can go through it with the person. It's just too hard for them to stand out there for 45 minutes going through it, but they can do it via the phone. Unless there's a special need, you know, we're always
Sure.
going to try to come
Sure.
up with some kind of an answer.
This is Pam. Hi. Does that also include at your closings when you have to do the mortgage papers? That could really be overwhelming for buyers sitting there trying to figure that out
Yeah.
and then do the
Well,
rest of it.
some of the lenders are having the people sign at their bank or lending place, and then they have the buyers bring the paperwork to us.
Okay, that would be good if they would all do that. I agree.
Yeah, if they would all do that, it would be very good.
Because then your
We have-
paperwork is pretty self-explanatory if
Yeah.
they can read it and figure it out
Yeah.
without too many questions.
Yeah. And
Yeah, we
you know,
just came out with e-sign closings where everything can be signed DocuSign for closings except for what needs to be notarized. So the borrowers actually get the package ahead of time that they can review and have any questions answered prior to closing. So that will hopefully help some of that too.
yeah, it's
A little ball game.
It is, and I would just like take this opportunity to just thank all of you, Andy, Josie, Melissa, Summer, those of you that are on the committee for Sauk Columbia. I really didn't know what to expect when the last time we met, because we were meeting in the middle of all this, and like we had all these events that we were talking about putting together that were just suddenly postponed and canceled, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And you guys were immediately on top of putting this program together. So on that side of things, I want to thank you for doing that and being so quick to come up with that concept and making this happen today. But also to just the way that you're adapting and continuing to work through all of this, because we're all in this as a first-time experience, and we're all kind of learning as we go. And when I was putting this program together and looking at trying to answer some of the questions I've been getting about the technical side of things, I realized pretty quickly how big that rabbit hole is. There's so many different devices and services and ways to communicate that it was a really tough thing to get it condensed down into this 1 hour. But it's also made me realize that we have all really been prepared for this through the change in the industry that we've seen over the last few years. Things like digital signatures and how we are able to do transactions and do things remotely, that we had a lot of this stuff in place already. I don't think really looked at it in that context. So as professionals, I just wanted to thank you for everything that you're doing and being here today. So thank you for that.
Well, and we couldn't do it without you, Rick.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's
thanks,
my
Rick.
pleasure. It's my pleasure. So we have any other questions at all? Any other comments?
Rick, I had
Or-
one last question.
Yes, go ahead, Pam.
I don't know if I was daydreaming or what I was doing at this point, but you mentioned something about a $60 gadget.
Yes.
What was that?
So this is what it's called, and I'll try to get it in so you can see it here. My background might be causing a problem.
Okay.
Here, let me do this. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna get rid of my virtual background here. There. So now I'm not. So this is what's
Okay.
called a shoulder pod. It's
Shoulder
a
pod.
handheld device, and basically it's got these hot shoe things. So I can put a microphone, a light, like so. They can be put anywhere on here, and it's not mechanical at all. But what I can do is I simply pull this little lever and it just drops my phone in there. So it's
Oh.
really stable, easy to move. It also has a hole in the bottom, which will accept a tripod. So if I'm doing selfie stuff or, doing some type of narrative or an interview, but really, really easy to use. And it stands up on a desk and it just completely keeps everything stable. And I think I literally paid like $58 for this thing.
Where do you
And
get
it
that?
it is rock solid. If you just do a search on Amazon for shoulder pod, you'll find it.
Okay.
It was relatively cheap and very easy to use. And then since I've got the other video up now, so this is my gimbal. This happens to be a DJI mobile, which is a very popular one. These run about $119, and you can find them even cheaper. It's got controls like zoom and pan, and I can flip the camera between forward and rear facing. I can also rotate the camera between portrait and landscape. You can literally move it anywhere. I can run with it. It stays pretty smooth, and they're super easy to use. They also come with their own piece of software for editing video and carving video down and doing titles and all kinds of stuff. Just super easy to use.
And that's also for your phone?
It's all for my phone, yes.
Okay.
And they work with any type of device. So
Okay.
you just go out and you can go out to YouTube and just do a search on whatever kind of phone you have. So if you have an Android, look up Android gimbals. If you have an iPhone, look up iPhone. And a lot of them are cross compatible, but you'll get an idea of what's out there. And for $100, you can really get a really nice piece of equipment, and they're really, really nice for this one here happens to have an extender on it, but it also opens up into a tripod. So super easy to use. If you go to the events, you see me running all over the place with them. They're just really easy to use, and they make my life really easy.
I'm getting one.
Yeah. What's that?
I said, I'm getting one. I can film my grandkids' soccer games and
Oh,
stuff.
they're great. Yeah, they're great. Really fun to use, and they're again, they really give your videos a little bit more quality and a professional look to them. And again, that's basically based on movement. It just smooths movement out. So
Thank you.
Very nice.
you're very welcome. Anything else from anyone? Yes. Do I have you muted? There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So speaking of editing video, do you have any suggestions for simple to use editing software, either an app or other?
Yeah, so if you're a Mac user, the easiest one to use is iMovie, and it's free.
Okay.
Because it's really easy to just drop and drag and drop and crop, and you can put titles and stuff in. There are several out there that are free, but usually they have some limitations on them as far as length and things like that. I actually just got one the other day, which I use. Let me find it here because I forget what it's called now. I paid $30 for it, and it's a lifetime license, and it's called Kine Master. And I'm going to type that into the chat window.
Oh.
KineMaster. What I like about that one is I can run it on my iPad or my iPhone. It is available on Android as well, I think. But I can drag and drop a couple of video clips, a couple of pictures. I can put them in any order: video, picture, video, and I can change the transitions and put titles and draw animated arrows to point at things. And I can either put music to it or use some pre-built music that's with it. And it's super easy to use. And then when you are done and you compile it, it gives you a URL and a video file, and you can put that anywhere. And that's a super easy one to use. And I think you can get a demo for it for 7 days to try it out. There are some other ones that are out there as well that I use for more professional stuff. One of those is called Filmic. Hey, buddy. Filmic Pro, Filmic. There's a Filmic and Filmic Pro. Those work fabulous. They're a little bit more pricey, but those can really help you with some things like exposure. They have monitors built into them. So in a dark room, they will adjust exposure for you accordingly, especially on like the iPhone 11, which has really good light reading capability. Can do amazing things with some really affordable apps. So I think between a gimbal and a microphone and the apps that come with that stuff, for 140, 150 bucks, you can be really set up to do some pretty amazing things.
Nice.
Anything else? Okay. Well, again, thank you all for being here today. I will get, let me just stop recording here.